There's a particular kind of silence that follows you home from social gatherings. Not the peaceful kind, the kind that replays every pause in conversation, every moment your words seemed to land wrong, every smile that felt just slightly too polite. You lie there in the dark, running through it all again. The way their attention seemed to drift when you were speaking. How the conversation moved on so quickly after your contribution. That laugh that felt just a fraction too delayed. And somewhere in that silence, a voice begins to whisper, "They thought you were boring." The evidence presents itself with perfect clarity. You talked about that thing for too long. You saw their eyes glaze over but kept going anyway, trying to make it interesting, which only made it worse. When you finally stopped talking, the relief in the room was palpable. They practically fell over themselves to change the subject. Nobody followed up. Nobody asked questions. Nobody seemed to want to hear more. The voice in the silence doesn't say, "Maybe they thought you were boring." It says, "They did." God, when will they stop talking? This is excruciating. Why did I even engage with this person? You can almost hear it. Their internal monologue, their private eye rolls, their silent prayers for the conversation to end. It doesn't feel like you're guessing. It feels like you know. And once you know, you start watching yourself. Am I talking too much about this? Is my voice too monotone? Should I wrap this up? The words feel forced now, stilted. You're searching for what to say, and the searching makes everything feel more awkward. Look at how unnatural you sound. Look at how you're struggling. See, you really were boring. But wait, how do you actually know what they were thinking? Their face did something. A flicker of expression, a shift in attention. You felt something transmit across the space between you. But what exactly did that flicker mean? That pause after you spoke, was that boredom? Or were they actually thinking about what you said? Or were they distracted by something else entirely? Or tired? Or anxious themselves? You filled in the blank. You decided what that ambiguous signal meant, and you filled it in with the worst possible interpretation. A facial expression that lasted half a second becomes definitive proof of their contempt. A pause becomes their desperate search for an escape route. A shift in posture becomes their physical manifestation of boredom. You took fragments, ambiguous, fleeting fragments, and constructed an entire narrative about their inner experience. And then you believed that narrative as if you'd been given direct access to their mind. What if their wandering attention had nothing to do with you? What if that pause was them actually thinking about what you said? What if they were distracted by their own anxieties, their own fear that they were being boring? What if the conversation just moved on? The way conversations do, for reasons that had nothing to do with your worthiness. Something shifts when you see the gap between the flicker and the story. The flicker happened, that expression, that pause, that shift in attention. Something transmitted across the space between you. But the complete narrative about their contempt, their boredom, their desperate wish to escape, that came from you. You took ambiguity and made it certainty. And now seeing that gap, the certainty starts to loosen. Maybe you were boring. Maybe you weren't. but you don't actually know what they thought. What you know is what happened. They stayed. They responded. They engaged. The rest was a story you told yourself about what was secretly happening beneath the surface. And stories can be questioned. The silence that follows you home doesn't have to be a trial. It can just be silence. The evening settling. The experience being what it was. You tell yourself the relief would come from certainty, from knowing they found you interesting. But maybe the relief is in recognizing that you were never actually reading their minds. You were reading your own fears, projected onto ambiguous signals, and mistaking that projection for truth.